Alright, Hacksters, it is Saturday, and I want to finish putting together this SparkPunk sequencer that I started the other day so that we can mess around with it and do weird audio things. So, you can check out the previous video if you're curious. Part 1 was already published and is linked in the description below. That is SparkPunk Sequencer Kit Live Soldering Part 1! You can find it by going to Hackster.io/videos also. Just click on that one. We are putting together the SparkPunk Sequencer Kit, which allows you to output sequential voltages to control things like synthesizers, including the SparkPunk Sound Kit, also by SparkFun, which has now been discontinued, but I'm going to make my own things to be controlled by it. And I'm following this hookup guide, which, along with the other links, is also linked in the description below. So, we got through some of the capacitors last time. Here we go. Oh wait, this is just the parts list. They tell you how to put it on. We did all the resistors. We did the ceramic capacitors. And I think we're on to the electrolytic caps. Oh, we've done 3 little ones. We're saving the big one for later. And we can take a look, compare it. There's the board. And if I switch over, then here is my board. We have all of the same things. Hooray! So it's time to move on. And I'm going to keep looking at the hookup guide for reference. So this is what I'm following. We just looked at the odd man out thing, which says that there's one large capacitor that is not going to be included. So next, we're putting the ICs on. Interesting. We're not putting those on last. Normally, I would plan to do that just because they are more sensitive to heat, but I should be good enough at soldering that I won't mess those up. And they are very low profile, which makes it convenient to put them on near the beginning. All right, so they are in DIP packages, dual inline packages, and we're going to switch over to the camera and get a little bit better color for you, I think. Oh yes, look at that. A little bit of brightness, a little bit of contrast. Cool. So I am using lead-free solder as always. Let's focus a little better. Yes, and we are off. Okay, so the next thing to do is these ICs. They, as usual, have a little notch indicating the side with pin 1, and they in fact have a little dot indicating where pin 1 is on each chip, and they're labeled with the name of the chip. And here I have all the chips in their little Ziploc bag. Got my solder, and I got my iron. So what are we doing first, according to them? We're going to do the 7555. The first chip to go on is the 7555 timer. There are several similarly sized chips in the kit. There are a number of 8-pin DIP packages, that's true. And so we're going to just put that on. There's 3 op-amps, LM358Ns, and this is the 7555. Okay, so these often come with the legs bent out a little bit, so I'm going to just use the table and sort of put it down and move it a little bit so that the legs point straight down, which makes it a lot easier to insert. And where are you? Here we go. Ho 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 ho. Perfect. And it stays in there on its own tension. I'm going to, since that's friction fit pretty well, I'm going to put a couple more on. CD4013BE. This one. There's a 4013 and a 4017. Again, I'm going to straighten these out on the table. You know, for the first thing that I'm soldering today, it's probably not the greatest idea to start with the chips, but so it goes. I'm pretty comfortable with this. All right. Now where do you go? 4013B. Here we go. And following the pin markings, we put it over there. Now double check this one. That's in the right place. Yes, that's in the right place. Okay, cool. Both of those are in the right spots. They're both friction fit pretty well, so maybe I'll go on to the next one. Or actually, maybe it's best to let the board cool a little bit between them. That's definitely a possible thing. So that they don't get sustained or subjected to sustained high temperatures. So let's go ahead and solder these first two on. I have a pretty big soldering iron, but it works okay for these things. I'm going to kind of move around the pins so that I'm not concentrating heat in any particular location for a long time. Because ordinarily, I might choose to solder sockets onto the board and then just put the chips in them to help protect them from the heat. That also enables you to swap them out pretty easily if something happens, but hopefully nothing bad anyway. As always, I'm trying to heat up both the lead and the pad with my soldering iron tip, and then apply solder from the opposite direction so that it is heated up by those parts. And that ensures a good flow and adhesion. There we go, yes. All right, a couple more chips. We've got, I think, 4 more. What do they say to do next? The 4017 BE. That's this other big one. Yeah, and like if I accidentally put these on in the opposite, I put the wrong chip in the wrong place, it's a lot easier to swap them around with sockets as well, especially given that they have so many pins, so many legs. I usually go with that, but it's fine. Osama asks, what is this kit for? It is the SparkFun SparkPunk sequencer, which is a musical device, or it's intended for music anyway. You could hack it to use for whatever, but it has a bunch of sliders that you use to set a sequence of different voltages. So these all go sort of here. And then, for example, if I go da da da, and then the next one is like this, and the next one is like this, and those were controlling the pitch of a piece of music, then it'd go like da do do da do 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 do, sort of that. And there's a whole row of them, and it'll play them in order. So you can sort of mess around with a melody by just changing. Yeah, exactly. Dave says it's going to be a beeping noise machine. That's a much simpler way of putting it. Let's get some more of these chips in. These 3 are all identical. 3 identical LM358 dual operational amplifiers, op amps. So I'm going to put these on. Again, aligning the notch on the chip with the notch on the silk screen. And there is also a little dot for pin 1, which aligns with the dot on the silk screen. I might have squished that one in too far, actually. But it does make for a nice friction fit. There we go. Let's solder those 2 in. Where'd they go? They have such tiny little legs that it's easy to kind of lose them. Put you there and you there. This also functions as sort of tack soldering. Tack soldering is like soldering in one pin of like a set of headers or whatever, 1 or 2 pins, just to make sure that they stay in place while you solder the rest of them. If you just solder 1 pin and then you can sort of make little adjustments and check whether it's aligned and stuff. Similarly, if I were afraid that these were going to jostle out of place while I was soldering, I could solder on one pin of each one of them, and it would, yeah, keep them in place. I haven't actually seen anyone solder chips on this way, but it just seems like a good idea to spread the heat around. You know, like when you're using a heat gun for surface mount soldering or whatever, it's just a good idea to keep the heat moving when you have sensitive components like this. Maybe I'm being too paranoid. All right. Isn't that like a constant engineer's refrain? Maybe I'm being too paranoid. Here we go. 2 more op amps. One goes up here. And our final one, where does that go? Ah, there. Double check the alignment. This one has a notch there, this one has the notch there. Perfect. We should be able to go pretty quickly, since this time I sort of decided to forego the long intro on this video because it's part 2. And I can get to playing with this soon. So yeah, as I mentioned, the SparkPunk sound, the sound kit that this was designed to go with has been discontinued. But what it was is a 555 timer-based little synthesizer thing. And that's basically what I've been wanting to build for myself, is a little 555-based noise unit. And so I figure that if theirs worked with a 555 thingy, then mine can work with a 555 thingy, and I can just build my own little sound module for it to work with. All right, there we go. That's all 6 of the chips soldered on. Let's take a look at what comes next. Semiconductors, transistors, and LEDs. Cool. Transistors, we got 10 of them, all 2N3904s. I got them in this little bag. The nice thing about transistors is that they have, they have these silk screens that are round on one side, flat on the other, and that's exactly what the top of a transistor looks like. So we can just, maybe I'll do these every other one so they don't interfere with each other, and I can do like 5 at a time. Sometimes they'll come with the legs kind of already arranged so that they're spaced out from each other. These did not come that way, so I have to kind of do it manually. Funnily enough, if you look at the product photo for this kit, it shows that one of the little transistors is bent over in the way that they always love to do, and so it looks a little untidy. It's a natural, it's just part of nature, a natural process. Your transistors will probably get bent over. It probably won't look super beautiful. Yeah, so I'm just doing every other one to start with, because that way I can space them out well, and the legs aren't going to like cross over each other, so I can just put 5 in, solder them, put the other 5, and clip the legs off, and then put the other 5 in and solder them. Ved Prakash says, that is one clean solder job. Why, thank you. Much appreciated. I have a fair amount of experience with this, but it's always nice to hear good feedback. The nice thing about the chips that we just did is that they don't have to have their leads clipped off at all, so they look very clean on the other side of the board. There we go. All right. Now you see how if I had put in all the transistors right now, then their legs would kind of run into each other? That's what I'm trying to avoid. Oh, let's put this sideways, actually. There we go. And try to get that glare off of there. Close enough. Yeah, the deal with doing a clean solder job, right, is that you're trying to make a nice little cone of solder. It really has to do with sort of how much you apply. You're trying to get something with sort of concave sides. If it's convex, you've probably used a little bit too much, and you want it to be nice and shiny. With lead-free solder, it tends to be a little bit less shiny, but that's okay. Ooh, now here's the thing. I want to make sure that doesn't get bridged. All right. So I'm gonna go in there with my little clipper, and it doesn't look like it's touching, but I'm just gonna clip it away just in case. All right. Time to clip these off. Gonna grab them with my fingers so they don't go everywhere. It kind of went everywhere anyway. Oh well. You can do this from the side, actually. Yes! There we go. All 3 of them at a time. One got a little longer. All right. Time for the other 5 transistors. And what are these? These are, I think they're PN2222s, which would be NPN transistors. Oh no, 2N3904. But they are NPN transistors, so they are, they do not allow power to flow through them unless you've applied power to the gate. Now, someone's gonna have to check me on this. I know these are bipolar junction transistors, BJTs, and there's 2 different ways of denoting the legs on a transistor, depending on whether it's a BJT or a FET, a field effect transistor. And one of them uses source, gate, and drain. And I think that's BJTs. So these guys allow power between the source and the drain if there's current flowing to the gate, and not if not. And a PNP transistor is the opposite. But and it's named for the sort of layers of semiconductor material inside. But what's the other one? Source, gate, and drain, or collector, emitter, and it's not also gate, is it? Collector, base, and emitter. And I always forget which ones apply to BJTs and which apply to FETs. But it's an interesting little terminological question. All right, let's get these soldered on. As you can see, they look a little bit non-orderly, and that's just because you've got to do so much like bending and stuff. They never come out quite straight. But here we go. I'm going to do this sideways again. We have a question from Jeffrey who says, do you vent when soldering? There isn't much ventilation in my lab, something I need to improve. Well, I don't have an actual like venter device. I do have one, but it's not hooked up here, largely because it's very noisy, and trying to do videos with that on is not great. What I have instead is there are a couple of skylights in here, and I open them up to allow airflow through. And so that provides a decent amount of ventilation. It's true, you do want to have some ventilation. Other safety measures, you want to make sure that whether you're using lead-free or leaded rosin core solder, either way, you want to wash your hands before you eat or drink anything afterwards, of course, just because you don't want any of that going into your system. Aha! Mike says FET are gate source drain. That means BJTs would be collector, emitter, and base. Oh, yeah, great. As Dave said as well, aren't these the ones with emitters and collectors? Yes, apparently. Fantastic. Bryce says, what is the sequencer supposed to sequence? Well, it is sequencing voltages for controlling musical devices, such as little synthesizers and things. I'm now getting the 11 LEDs ready. So let's grab those. I probably shouldn't be tossing my little cutoff leads into the same box with the rest of this stuff, so let's get that out of there. Oh, really? I should actually just have my little desktop trash can. Here we go. It's like a tea container. And we'll throw trash into there. Okay, so LEDs. We can probably do these all at once. Positive side over here. Negative over there. Again, I'm going to do every other one. Am I, though? I'll just bend the legs in a different direction so they don't interfere with each other. That's less of a pain. So I'm going to bend the legs up and down instead of out to the sides. That was a little wobbly. There we go. And I'm using my finger on the bottom of the board to push the legs up in this direction and down toward the bottom of the board. That'll help hold them in place. Yeah, if you have any further questions about the point of this sequencer, feel free to check out the links in the description to this video, which is where I've put links to the part 1 of this assembly vid, as well as the official SparkFun page for this SparkPunk sequencer, and as well as the hookup guide that I'm following, and the theory and applications page. Nearly done with these guys. I've managed to not lose any of them yet. Yay! Famous last words. I'm definitely going to have lost a slider or something. So there's 10 of them in this row, one for each step of the sequence. You can shorten the sequence if you want. And then we also have one over here. Putting the long leg in the plus side. Yes. Okay. Time to solder. This does make it a little bit more annoying to solder them all in a row, I guess. Having the legs bent this way. Nearly done over here. No more questions just yet. If you go and watch part 1, there's some pretty fun little extra things in there beyond just me soldering and talking about it. There's also we looked at these Forrest Mims notebooks that I had on my bookshelf, as well as the engineer mini notebooks, some of them, as well as some cool old radial switches. These things. We'll talk about those a little bit. All right, so let's clip these off. And actually, I'm going to check something real quick. Procedural. Okay. Clip these off. Oh, definitely a lot more annoying to clip them off if they're not all in the same direction. Well, they should still be in the same axis, just like if I put them going the other way. Okay, so into the desktop trash they go. Trying to keep this nice and clean. The more we keep things clean now, the less we'll have to deal with shorts and things later on. Such a satisfying noise. If anyone has a favorite ventilation system, I'd be interested to hear what y'all use. The one that I have is just kind of a little fan mounted behind a carbon filter, which you put adjacent to your workspace, and then it sort of pulls the air through the filter sideways away from your face. Okay, cool. What's next? LEDs. Check your work. Cool. All right. Oh, okay. We're going to do the switch, and then yes, then it's time for the slide switch. Oh, well, the slides. Okay, then we get to do the slide potentiometers. Okay, we're nearly there. So first the tactile switch. Cool. That's one of those things that I pulled out of the box. Here we go. And which way does it go? Does it matter? It looks about symmetrical. Button, aka tactile switch. Oh, of course, it has an LED in it, so it is polarized. And there's a little plus on one of the white plastic tabs. Ah, there. Don't know if you can see that. I can barely see it. And then we have a plus on the silk screen over here. Cool. I'll try and get the legs all aligned so this actually works. These four are probably the legs for the switch, and then these two little ones are for the LED. Ha! I love it when switches have these little sort of pre-bent legs that help hold them in place. It's so satisfying to snap them in place, and they just stay so nicely, so you get a nice snug fit. All right, 6 things to solder on here. I'm going to try not to miss any of them. Where'd it go? We're at the point where everything kind of looks the same. Oh, here it is, up here. Put it on upside down, that's why. Okay, now the slide switches. Ooh! These are not polar. They just connect things together. So where are they? Here we go. And how many do we have? 12. So there's 2 up here for power and long, short versus long. And then also these guys down here. Ooh, these, these, you can't really bend their legs out very easily. Maybe I'll do it a different way. I'm going to hold it in place with my finger, get some solder onto my iron here, and just sort of tack that in place, if it'll work. Are you gonna work? Not yet, need more solder. Not with this solder. That's no good. Crumbly. Cleaning my iron off. Can I get that to adhere? Not really. Ah, what a pain. Well, can I really don't want to have to like flip it over each time, and these legs aren't very conducive to like, oh, you know what, that's a decent friction fit, actually. Maybe they'll, oh, you know, no, that fell out. I don't want to have to like put them in and then solder them all individually, flipping it over each time. That'd be kind of a pain. But what I'm going to see if I can do is like flip it over onto the table. No, that's not going to work either. Curses. Well, maybe I'll do it this way. Haha, sideways. I'm sure there's, better ways of doing this, but this is how I'm going to do it. There should be enough friction here to keep it. I'm just going to tack solder one pin of each of these in place, because this is not the least awkward thing I've ever done. Now those, nice, I can adjust them later on. This one needs, there we go, yeah. That's pretty solid. That one needs a little wiggling, and this one's pretty good. Okay. So you see how you like solder one pin on and you kind of jiggle it around until it's in place, and then you can like solder the rest of them on later on. That's sort of what I'm trying to do here. They give you tips for soldering some of these things in the SparkFun hookup guide, but for switches they have not, and so I assume that no one else has come up with a better way of doing this that they've shared in there yet. Okay, so here we are, doing some more tack soldering. Just get these guys on there. And then we can adjust the angle and everything before we solder them on for good. See how this one's all wonky? I'm going to adjust that one before I solder the other legs down. That's much better. These look pretty straight. 2 more in this row, and then we have 2 final ones. Okay, so now I can solder the rest of these connections because they're held in place. Yes, this is much better. Okay, cool. Not looking forward to clipping all of these off. But for now, it's pretty easy. Now, it's possible we may have to delay the rest of this into a part 3, which is frustrating, but it is a Saturday, and it turns out that there might be plans going on. But in that case, we will be back in a day or two, probably tomorrow, Sunday, just because I want to get this done and start playing with it. It's a cool kit, you know? So let's check. What's the deal? No word yet. So I think we'll keep going. And do the other 2 switches. This guy and that guy. I'm curious about this short and long switch. I wonder what that's for. There we go, both seated nicely. So far today we've done the chips, we've done the LEDs, we've done the transistors as well, and we're about to finish the switches. That's pretty good so far. These should be really satisfying now. Oh, they're pretty good, yeah. No wobble, that's really nice. This one's a little bit crooked, but you can only get so perfectionist about this. Okay, cool. Oh, now I get to do the slide pots. Hooray! We're nearing completion, I think. Yes, great. They only fit in the board one way. Oh, removable tape. I'm gonna just tack them on again. Then there's rotary pots, and then we have the battery box and that last capacitor on the bottom and stuff. Okay, cool. So more tack soldering. Hooray! I'm gonna do it with the double end up. So these have 3 pins, as you can see. Like normal potentiometers, they have 2 ends and a wiper. Oh yeah, those are really unstable. Okay. That won't even really stay in place for a tack job. Oh, you know what we can do? Another thing I like to do when I don't feel like I have enough hands is you can just bend your solder like this and then move both the iron and your component into place. Actually, I'll do this one. It's a little clumsy, but it gets the job done. And see, now I can sort of, that's held in place. I'm going to do that to the rest of them. And takes a lot of the hassle. I can't be bothered to like tape all of these down before I solder them in. That's just not going to happen. I am far too lazy. So we'll get this up a little higher. There we go. Just get that on there. Obviously, you wouldn't do like a lot of components like this. This is just for getting something in place so that it'll stay. And then we'll do the rest of the connections. I'll also touch up these connections after the fact because they probably aren't very good. And if I forget to do that, then you all have license to yell at me. That one was a little bit bent up, but there we go. I said, there we go. Come on. There we go. All right, another one. Ooh, this one's actually missing a leg. That's no good. Oh, no, it's not. Duh. It's just the other end. I was like, where did it even go? I don't see a stub there or anything. Okay, cool. 2 more. Rebend our solder here. I love this. I think of it like a cobra, like a snake. You sort of charm to keep it in place. Here we go. There we are. One more. Be careful how you hold these, though. Depending on which pin you're soldering, it might end up being the ground pin, in which case it might end up being connected to the case of the component, in which case you might end up burning your fingers. But, yeah. Believe it or not, this is the least fiddly way that I can think of to do this. Definitely better than ripping off endless pieces of tape, in my opinion. Everyone's got their preferences. Like, the lazy way for someone is like the super effort way for someone else. There we go. Like, someone else would probably see this and be like, oh my god, that looks horrible. Why would you do it that way? It looks like so much work. And that's valid too. This one's a little bit bent. There we go. Oh no, too far. Gotta get it just right. And I also don't want to bend these too much because, of course, they are made of metal. They can break. And then you have one fewer slide pot. And what are you going to do? You can only have 9 steps in your sequence. Which honestly, you know, having an 8 or 9 step sequencer is not a problem. Having a 10-step sequencer is actually a little bit of overkill, in my opinion, just because often you'll be working in like either 3 or 4 beats in terms of your rhythm, so that you would need either like 8 or 9 steps, or even 12 steps. But 10 is a strange number to me to use for this kind of thing. But whatever, I'll take it. You can cut steps out of the sequence, but you can't add more. Unless you want to make your whole own device. As I said, this is not the most elegant way to do this, but it does work. There we are. A little bit more. And one final slide pot on here. And if this way of doing this has been giving you hives, then your torment is nearly done. Clumsy but effective. I feel like that goes for so much in my life. Woo, look at that! Okay, cool. Time to actually solder these on. Like a grown-up. Close enough. This is fair. Yes, 10 steps can give you some interesting rhythms. Osama says, the video will be saved on the channel, right? So I can watch it again. Oh, yeah! Good night. Go to sleep. Yeah, it will be saved on the channel. You can go to Hackster.io/videos. You can go to our Facebook or YouTube pages. It'll be in all those places. And yeah, this is just the part 2 video. So now, I'll touch those up at the end. Do them all together. There we go. Oh, yes, this is so much nicer. Dave also says, the torment will begin when you turn it on. fair. I've actually already been messing around with some synthesizer stuff today, but it was a different type of synthesizer. They were sort of all-in-one analog synthesizers that were already a complete device. If you're familiar with the Volca series by Korg, playing around with the FM and the bass. My partner has been showing me some cool stuff with synthesizers in general, and I'm really enjoying those little devices. They have a lot of freedom, but also are very easy to sort of get started with. This is not an official endorsement. It's just that I like them. All right. Time to firm up these connections. You know what I should have done, actually? I should have gone through, like I did with the switches, and made sure that they were all positioned well before I soldered on the other legs. Well, Saturday brain. And also they looked pretty good, so they're probably fine. But I didn't look very closely. All right, at least they should be secure, in whatever configuration they are. Well, they all look pretty flat. Maybe this one is a little bit out of line, but in general. Oh, yes. Oh, that's the money right there. Yes. Okay, cool. Beautiful. Time for the rotary potentiometers. We got 2 of these. And what's their deal? We've got... They're not polarized, but they'll only fit on the board one way. I think they are the same as each other. One is for tempo. Again, we have these little grabby claw ones, which are probably grounded. And then we have the 3 little connections. Put the little pins in first, then... Come on. There we go. Takes a little bit of force. Get those aligned. Trying not to stab myself through the board. Oh no. Oh, one of these is a little bit wonky. Trying not to break this by bending it too much back and forth. That should work okay. If all else fails, I can just clip that off because it won't be necessary to hold it on. There we go. Okay, cool. And those are held in place against the board pretty well, so I'm just going to solder them on as is. Not even going to bother with a third hand. Sometimes you just got to get things done. I do advise usually doing things the right way. But you know how it is. Saturday rules. All right, one more to go. The thing is, I'm actually not sure what to hook this up to if we get it done today, because, again, they stopped producing that sound kit, so I couldn't order it, and I don't have a good 555 circuit already prepared for it, so we might have to come back another day and do a demo. If you happen to know of another kit or device that works with this sequencer out of the box, let me know and we can take a look. But for now, okay. So we've got both the rotary potentiometers on there. Topside completion. All right. Let's check that everything's in the correct place. I've kind of been doing that as I go, but I think it is. Yeah. Quick visual check. Looks good. Let me know if you see anything weird. Someone says we were just talking about circuit bending. Not so much. This is. I mean, circuit bending is awesome. This particular thing is not really for circuit bending, although you could probably use it that way by like feeding different levels of voltage into some part of a circuit in order to create different sounds. That'd be really cool, actually. Oh, never say never. But yeah, it's not really what this thing is designed for. Anything really designed for circuit bending, though? I'm sure there's some kits that are designed to help you circuit bend. So we're putting in the battery connector next. And how does that go on? We've got it facing away from the capacitor there, depending on what you mean by away. And it's got a couple of screws that are going to hold it on. Okay. 2 screws? 1 screw? 1 screw, I think. This screw. What if I put that on first? No, I should probably solder it in place first. Do. The bolt should be inserted from the inside of the battery compartment and secured with a nut on the front side of the board. Cool. So let's get this on straight if we can. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and solder this like I did before with the other ones. Make a little snake out of the solder that stands up on its own. A little bit taller. There we go. Make sure that this is oriented properly. That looks pretty good. And then get my fingers out of the way. Haha. And solder like so. Let's do this one first. Get some solder on the iron first to get good thermal contact. There we are. Oh, that was pretty good, actually. Sometimes with batteries and stuff, you'll end up having these huge contacts, especially with things like heat sinks, obviously. And having something with huge contacts means that it takes forever to heat up and get a good joint. But in this case, it actually is working pretty well. Just takes a lot of solder. I'm using pretty thin solder here, so it eats up a lot of it. There we go. Pretty solid. That ground one could be pushed a little further. Gonna try and keep the heat off of that chip while I adjust it. There we go. That's pretty much in place. There's a little bit of wiggling. I think that's just because the battery contacts aren't super well adhered to the case. And there's a little, here we go. This little indicator is where the screw goes. From this side, there's a screwdriver. There we are. Just needed some encouragement. Around to here. Ooh. Ah! There we go. And I'm going to turn it to the other side, sort of holding the nut in place with my finger to get a little bit tighter. There. That's pretty sturdy. Cool. So the battery's on. Now we do the 1000 microfarad capacitor. Is that just 1 millifarad? I think so. Micro is like millionths. Milli is thousandths. Here we go. Positive leg in here. Negative in the other, just like with an LED. Long one is positive. And the negative leg is also marked with a little stripe there. Ooh. Get it a little bit more stable. There we are. Where are my clippers? Here they are. Okay, so we've also got some connectors. The last set of components are these connectors. All right. And we can just attach those together. They're right angle headers. They go here. And they go on the bottom of the board, I guess. Aha, neat. I'm going to, again, tack solder one pin using this sort of cobra snake method. There we go, that's lighting. Much better. Okay, cool. So now those are kind of held in place. I'm just gonna solder them on the table like this. Redo that first one. Yes. Cool. Is that it? That might be it. And we can plug it in to the 9-volt battery. Solder the connector to the top of the PCB. I've done that. There we are. Oh, wait a minute. Oh, huh. Male is on the sequencer. Oh, yeah. Okay, then this is on the sound generator, I guess. Which, again, is a separate module that I don't have because they stopped producing it. And instead I'm going to use this sequencer with some other things. Ooh, we can do a little test. Cool. But first, let's take a look at this. And just, yeah, see what happens when we plug it in. We're not going to hear anything. Dave says, so there is no synthesizer on the board and it's giving out control voltages instead. Correct. They're coming out here. You've got CV1, CV2, gate, and then voltage and ground. So that's 2 levels of control voltage and a gate. Negative, positive. Goes like that. Nice. Good tight connection. Do we have like a power indicator LED? Yes. Oh, interesting. Huh. I'd have expected like this one to turn on or something. Ooh, look at that. Neat. And what are these for? I haven't yet read the like theory and application document, which would probably tell me what all these things are supposed to be acting like right now. But yeah, let's do the test as described in the tutorial. And actually, I'm just gonna check one other thing. Okay, cool. So let's do a little test. I made these really janky connectors for my multimeter because it didn't come with those little hook ones. It just came with the probes, the little pointy probes, and so I sort of Frankensteined them together. But I tested it and it seemed to work okay, so all right. I put some little heat shrink on so I know which probe is which. So I'm going to follow in the hookup guide. At the bottom, there is a test. First test is a smoke test. Install the battery in the battery compartment. I've done that. Turn on the power switch. The first step LED should light up solidly. That has happened. Feel the ICs. None of them should be warm to the touch. That's a good one, actually. Nope, none of them are warm. What next? Press the run button. The button should illuminate. The red rate LED should start to flash, and the step LEDs should start chasing from left to right. Ooh, they did not start chasing from left to right. Yeah, it's not continuing to go. Oh, you know what? Maybe that's because the tempo is all the way down. What if it's just really, really slow? Oh, if I hold it down, it goes. You press it though. It should be a latching switch based on the description. But instead it seems to be a motor. Oh no, there we go. Okay, cool. I wonder if this has like needs a little bit of extra TLC. Those look like pretty good connections. Anyway, it's going now. That's cool. Great. All of those are going. Our rate is going. It should respond to the tempo being changed. Whoa, cool! So again, it's going to output control voltages in a sequence based on where these are positioned. So high voltage, low voltage, middle voltage. And if I were to like actually hook this up to something, it'd be like beep, boop, boop, beep, boop, 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 you know, basically, depending on what you actually hook it up to. Dave says, I think the buttons under the sliders connect to the reset of the 4017. Interesting. I'm actually not totally familiar with what the 4017 is doing. It's some kind of logic dealy bob, but yeah. Stop playback by pushing the run switch again. The button LED should go out, and the chasing and flashing should stop. The LED over the first step should be lit steadily again. Yep, this is stopped. Those have stopped. This is once again lit, and this is off. Nice. If you have a voltmeter handy, you could use it to test the output port. Set the meter to value. Oh, of course! Okay, so we're going to put the black one on the ground pin. I don't actually need that there. And then the other one on CV1. See how helpful it is just have these hook on? Well, the sequencer is stopped. Adjust the slider on the first step. You should see the voltage vary between approximately 7.5 volts at the bottom of its travel and 0.7 volts at the top. Okay, so this one is sort of always on if the run button is not going. So we have these hooked on there. They're not shorted to anything. And I'm going to turn on my multimeter. Fancy that. Voltage, let's put on 20. Huh. Okay, that's 7.8. And 0.8. 7.7. 0.7. If I like sort of smash it down, 7.6 we can even get to. And 0.7. Beautiful! So now, if we do something like this, so it should go gradually up, middle, down, middle, and you should be around like 3-ish, 4-ish, maybe around 4. Yeah, so let's hit run and see if I can get it to actually stay on. Okay, well, anyway. Okay, check it out. So we're getting a sequence of voltages output. And if I slow down the tempo, and then if I speed it up, it can't even keep up. It's probably just averaging them around 4 to 4.5. Ah, that's funny. Yay! Well, that's great. Let's test what happens if I put them all down at the bottom. It should just stay around 7.6. Indeed it does. And if we put them all at the top, ooh. Yep, steady as a rock. Neat. Oh, and now it's staying on. Thank you, run button. You've finally joined us. So it seems like that run button maybe needs a little bit of extra care. But yeah, it seems to work. Splendid. Let's see if there's anything else on this hookup guide that I need to look at. Integrated system test. We have to test it together with the sound generator. Which, oh, here we go! The controls! The following picture denotes the controls on the sequencer. 8, 10 steps. Each step has several controls. Step indicator LED, we know about that one. We know about the pitch slider. Oh! Huh. Okay. So if the switch is on, the note for this step will sound. If the trigger is off, the step of the sequence will be silent. Now, that is different than just not being activated. It will still take up as much time as it ordinarily would. It just won't make a sound. It won't output any voltage. Let's see what happens actually in that case. Okay, so come on, give me something I want to look at. Well, whatever. Okay, so there we are. So those were all short pulses. Interesting. Oh, it stays lit if I just hold it down for a second. Otherwise, is that right? Yeah. Oh, cool. Nice. Okay, so it's not malfunctioning. It's just that I need to hold it down for a moment in order to keep it lit, keep it running. All right, so this is the tempo right now. And then if I hit long, no, it just continues going. I wonder if this is delay. I wonder if it like, or decay rather. I wonder if it like fades out slowly instead of just being a bip, bip, bip. It would be like a bip, bip, bip. I don't know. So, oh yeah. Okay, so with these all down, all the switches down, we get sort of a constant voltage. With them all up, we get kind of a constant voltage. What if I put half the switches up and half of them down? Still the same voltage. So I'm not quite sure how that works. Because you're still outputting the voltage, so whatever you're listening with, it's still understand. Maybe it's the gate thing. It's just like not outputting like a signal to the sound circuit to actually play something. That could be the case. Like maybe when it moves to the next step, it not only sends the correct amount of voltage, but it also sends a signal telling it to play a note. And if it doesn't send that signal, then it won't play the note. That's my guess about what that means. But yeah, cool. Anything else in here? Sound generator interface. That's the part that we don't have. Cool. Very exciting. So that is the end of us assembling our beautiful SparkPunk sequencer. I'm definitely going to use this to make some weird music stuff. And I just have to build, at this point, I just have to build an actual synthesizer type module that will read these control voltages and respond accordingly. And then we'll be able to, it's only about this big. You could, in theory, put it on a rack or something. And then you will like twiddle your little knobs around and stuff. Yeah. Very exciting. It's so tactile. And so that took us, 2 to 3 hours to put together, 2.5. I don't know, something like that. And really nice project for like a Saturday. Can't wait to play with this. Stay tuned. Show us if you have built anything with this. Tell us if you have any alternatives to this SparkPunk sound board that this is designed to work with. It's linked from the page that we talked about before. Let me just pull that up for you. There we go. The sound kit. This thing. If you know of a replacement for this, that'd be really cool to find out so that we can play around with it. But otherwise, I'll just try and design my own thing, which, oh, we're not actually sharing the screen. There we go. SparkPunk sound kit. Yes, if you know of a replacement for this guy, that would be fantastic. And yeah. In the meantime, I hope you have lots of fun with whatever you're doing this weekend. We'll catch you soon, and as always, hack on. Our friend Neocortex says, "Cool, let's make some Godzilla controlling frequencies." I wouldn't be the one to test. I wouldn't want to be the one to test that. I'll let you do that somewhere far, far away from me. Okay. All right. We'll see you later.